Well, it's a new day. It is November 6th on Read Through the Word, and it is wonderful to be with you. We are experiencing our risen Lord today. And I think that's really, really good news. Really, really good news. One of my favorite stories. And it's really hard to pick. What is your favorite story in the Bible? I don't have like one single favorite story, I don't think. Well, of course, the resurrection is like, woo. But this is one of my favorite stories. I love the idea of what has happened here, what happens here with these two disciples and Jesus. One of the commentaries that I read said that this Luke 24, this story, this walk to Emmaus, this 7 miles that they walked, they were walking 7 miles. Emmaus was west of Jerusalem. It's like a model of our journey with the Lord, that many times we don't recognize him until he reveals himself to us in some kind of spectacular way. In fact, I love that in verse 16 we read, "But God kept them from recognizing him." And I want us to really hone in on this. Sometimes we experience spiritual blindness because God is not ready for what he wants us to see and experience. He's not ready, and perhaps we're not ready. So I believe, and what I've experienced in my life is this to be true. And when I say spiritual blindness, I don't mean that I'm not saved, and it doesn't mean that I'm walking far from God. These were his disciples. These were not part of the 12, but these were men that followed him. So they were devoted to God, and they were to Jesus, and they were completely devastated in what had happened. So it wasn't like they didn't know who Jesus was. But Jesus kept kept them from recognizing him. And I know, as I said, in my own life, this is something that I've experienced before. There have been things that I've wanted to know that hasn't been revealed to me yet. There are things that have been revealed to me when I least expected them. For example, many years ago, I want to say, my son is 20. So this was when I was early pregnant with him. I didn't even realize I was pregnant at the time, honestly. I went to see Beth Moore. And this is, I might have shared the story before, but this was a time when Beth was, before she was like big and famous, and she spoke in churches, so the crowds were quite smaller. And this was in a church. It was about 2,000 people, maybe 1,500. I don't know. I may even less than that. I'm terrible with estimating numbers. But anyways, I grabbed my girlfriends and we drove all the way to Maryland from North Carolina to see her. And I really didn't have any intention of experiencing God. I just wanted to get away from my everyday life. I wanted to get away from mama, 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 and why, and waking up in the middle of the night and all of that with my 2-year-old, then 2-year-old. And so I was just ready to get away. And I went and I experienced something that I had never experienced before in my life. Women worshiping the Lord. And I don't mean just singing. I mean tear-stained faces and hands raised high, and there was actually even dancing on the stage in the last song of the weekend. And I remember leaving there completely and utterly in despair. My spirit was despaired because I realized that I didn't know this God that these women knew. And I'm not saying, hear me here, I'm not saying you have to raise your hands to worship to show that you know the Lord. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there was something happening in that place that night or that weekend, and I knew enough to know that I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't like it. I'd been in church my whole life, and what in the world is this all about? So I came home and I settled with it for struggled with it for a few days. And I just realized it was just pure spiritual jealousy. And I wanted exactly what those women had. And so I recommitted my life to the Lord. I'd been baptized when I was young, but I requested to be baptized again. I wanted this to be a spiritual milestone. And it was. Things began to change in my life. I began to study scripture, and it was at this point that the Lord called me into ministry, and I don't know what that was all about, and I still sometimes don't know what all this ministry is about. I'm just going to teach the Bible, and that's what I'm going to do. But anyway, many years later, I had the opportunity to go and hear Beth again. And this time it was in Maryland also. It's in Baltimore. And she was filming a Bible study. So I was able to go and be part of the patriarchs filming. And my whole life was different then. I just could not wait to listen to her teach, to open my Bible, to study. And I had 5 days of studying with her. And it was just amazing, and I'm trying to condense the story, but when this week was over and Beth was walking off the stage for the last time, she walked back on the stage, and she was like, Travis Cottrell's her worship leader, still is, by the way. If you not familiar with Travis Cottrell music, you YouTube and look up his music. He's fabulous. But he said, she said, I can't leave. I just can't leave. And he said, well, let's just play one more song. And the song that they played that day, that last song, was the last song they had played that evening, and that weekend, where I was so devastated. And it was called We Will Dance. Look it up. In fact, maybe I'll play it for you if I can find it. If not, look it up. It really wasn't even the words of the song, although they're beautiful. It's about going to heaven. But what it was for me is I saw the Lord in a way that I'd never seen him before. Because he connected those 2 evenings for me, those 2 worship experiences, with a song. And in essence said to me, I know everything about you. And I wanted to show you how much I love you. And I want to reveal myself to you in a way that you've never known before. And I went to my knees in the middle of this congregation of probably 3,000 women and wept. He hid himself from me in several ways. until I was ready to see him that way. And I did that day. And I fully believe that God will reveal himself through his word, through his world, through people that we don't expect, in situations that we don't expect, in places that we don't expect, and in ways that we don't expect. Because that's who God is. He wants us to know him. But he chooses those times of revelation. Our job is to keep moving toward glory. It's to keep moving toward the advancement of the kingdom. It's to keep moving toward a likeness of our Father. And when we do that, we'll have a closeness to him that really is indescribable. And then there will be these moments peppered in the journey that will take our breath away, that we will suddenly recognize him in a way that we've never seen him before. Yeah, that's who he is, and I love it. You can see him while you're sitting in the chemo chair. You can see him while you're at the funeral home. You can see him in divorce court. You can see him, and he will reveal himself to you. He's always present. His name is Emmanuel, God with us. He's never not there, so I don't want you to think he's hiding. But there are these times where there's a special revelation between you and him. And write those down. Write those down. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.